We're already using resources for 1.5 planets. And we know that within the next 20 years, we will have 2 more billion people in the world. That will put enormous pressure on the world's forests to deliver resources enough for us to sustain the consumption that we have today. So we need to think of new ways to reduce the way that we use fibers, and we need to think of new ways where we also as an FSC organization can encourage and ensure that fibers stay in use for much longer. And that can be through different models. It can be through enabling recycling of material more, it can be through enabling sharing platforms or other alternative business models and putting that in as an integral part of our system. So a lot of our stakeholders of course know that if they don't do anything, the pressure on the fibers that they use will just go up. It will be harder and harder for them to get the fibers that they need, and the price will be higher and higher. So they need to think of new ways to get the materials that they need for their products. And they also need to think of new ways that they can reduce their footprint. From FSC's point of view, we're trying to look into, well, how can we enable this within our normative framework, our standards? Which kind of things do we need to tweak so that it becomes easier and more desirable to reduce fibers, to reuse fibers, and in overall just reduce your footprint on the planet? We also need to look into how can we encourage this from a communications point of view. How can we ensure that it is motivational for companies to actually move in this direction? How can we encourage consumers to reduce their consumption and their pressure on the forests? And we just need to make sure that we create strong alliances with all of the most knowledgeable people in this field, because we know a lot about sustainable forest management, we know a lot about biodiversity protection, about safeguarding human rights, but we are not necessarily yet experts in circular economy and circular transition. So those are some of the things that we as an organization will have to look out into over the next coming years. So some of the low-hanging fruits are really low-hanging fruits. We know that our chain of custody standard is coming up for revision. We know that our reclaimed material standard is coming up for revision. And some of the very simple things that we can introduce is stuff like making sure that we add an extra category to our volume summaries, so you no longer can only have what you bought and what you sold, but you can actually also, for example, have what do you have in lease, what do you have on a sharing platform, so that we enable these platforms where you're not transactional on the ownership of the fiber. The low-hanging fruits is the revision of the reclaimed material standard. Right now it is very difficult, if not impossible, to reuse pre-consumer wood, so wood that has not been outside of an industrial use. We could look into that. When that requirement was implemented, it was to safeguard the integrity of FSC. But it's a very long time ago, and we're looking into a future where we have data systems and tracking systems on a whole other level than we had when that rule was reinstated. So perhaps we need to go back and reevaluate whether that requirement is justified, or whether we should revise it and be less stringent or less strict in which kind of reclaimed fibers that we allow. We can also be much clearer on what does it take to reclaim a fiber, train auditors much better, make it much more clear for them what the requirements are and are not, because there are a lot of confusions in the marketplace. This is a standard that's not very widely used. So across the globe, there's slight differences in how you implement it. So that's the second low-hanging fruit. And then from the FSC side, we are already planning on reaching out to a lot of companies who have circular goals and strategies, and learning from them, well, what is their goal exactly? What do they know about how they're going to get there? They most likely don't know it all, because it's a new field for them as well, just as it is for us. But how might we work together and learn from each other, and how can we help bridge those gaps that are there? So that's an activity that we will uptake in the upcoming period. We will also be looking into what is the business potential of this for FSC. Is this something that we should prioritize really high? Or is this something that we will say, yes, it's important, but we have other more burning issues over here that we have to address first? And then lastly, we will we will enable just to support our stakeholders much better on this. So we will create an internal task force of people who has the highest level of knowledge on this inside the organization. So there is one place that you can go to and you can get a proper response, and that you can get a proper feedback on your idea. This is a new area for FSC, and this is something that we're only just starting to align all our own ducks in a row. But we do have a plan to engage more and to reach out more, and we will surely reach out to our memberships and do more events, do more online events, do more engagement events. So I think for everyone who's interested in this topic, if they just start following us and looking at our invites over the next 6 months, they will see quite a lot of things coming from us, because it is something we're interested in engaging on.